If you saw this picture online, you'd think these were trash. Who pays for something this weird? Someone paid $300. These aren't just old Levi's. This is Greg Lauren, Ralph Lauren's nephew. He takes vintage denim, deconstructs it into art. Most people see rips. I saw a car payment. The thrift store had these in the Halloween costume section. I picked them up, had them listed for $600, and they sold for $300 in a couple weeks. They are old Levi's. He had added some zippers, sewn in a pair of thermal long underwear. This is the tag you're looking for. It's Greg Lauren. It looks handwritten. The size looks handwritten. As you can see, they are vintage Levi's. The model name was this vintage denim cream waffle zipper lounge pant. The crotch was ripped and repaired intentionally. I'm Matt, and in November, we sold nearly 285 items to hit $10,000 in sales. Today, I'm going through my sold listings to show you the home runs, the fast flippers, some style-based aesthetic pieces, and also a few mistakes I made. First up, let's talk menswear. A lot of resellers skip the suit section at the thrift store because pictures can be more difficult and they don't know what sells. This one in particular sold for $225. It is a Samuelson Beckett Loro Piana wool suit. Another tag that you can look for is Zegna cloth. Ermenegildo Zegna is a high quality suit, even if you found it branded Zegna. But Zegna also farms out their fabric just like Loro Piana does. You can also find Loro Piana branded items. Up next is an Other Destination jacket. What sold this 100% is the aesthetics. It sold for $117 in just a couple weeks. Avant-garde designer. It's a crop jacket. I used the keyword festival, and then Alicia Keys wore a jacket almost identical to this, and that as seen on keyword can be very strong on eBay. It can be pretty hard to find as seen on items. The best way is to just do a Google image search and see if somebody shows up in it. Also, if it just fits the aesthetic, you can use them as a keyword. I wouldn't necessarily put it in the title, but there was pictures of Alicia Keys wearing this exact jacket. Workwear is still king. This is a vintage Carhartt Chore coat. This one kind of looks like a samurai may have worn it with this cape. It's also blanket lined. This one was from 1994. It's got the Made in USA. The big keywords for Carhartt, of course, are Chore coat. I always add barn in there as well. I like to include the style number if you have it. And then if it's blanket lined, include that. And it is duck canvas is the material. If this was unlined, if this blanket lining wasn't here, it likely would have sold for about half of what I got out of it. But because of this blanket lining, it increases the value quite a bit. And like I said, the cape kind of adds to that value as well. Up next is this Peruvian Connection alpaca wool coat, pea coat. Obviously, I wanted to have a good picture. This is, like I said, Peruvian Connection. What made this coat valuable, however, it is 70% baby alpaca and 30% lamb's wool. And I paid up for this. I got it in an online auction for $30, but that's why you don't auction stuff, guys. Up next is this vintage Woolrich jacket. This is one of their vintage tags. It's got the sheep logo with the Woolrich in script, made in USA. And the pattern really sold this. If it wasn't this Aztec kind of Fair Isle pattern, likely would have seen about half this price. It's still a good sale even at $50. I paid $10.49, and it sold, and it did take a couple of months, but for a $122 flip. The major keywords to remember here are Aztec, Southwestern, Navajo. It did have a leather trim on the collar and the pockets here, so including that helps out quite a bit as well. And the style sold this, as well as the age of the item. Up next is this Scotty Fest T5 blazer. I honestly didn't even know they made blazers, but the sell-through rate on Scotty Vest blazers is something like 800%, if I remember right. I got this for $10. It took a couple months to sell. Pretty quick sell-through really for a blazer. This sold for $170. And the big thing to know about Scotty Vest, and I did use a stock photo here to demonstrate it to my buyer, is they have all these extra pockets on the inside. They're kind of like really good for travel and the tech bros. So including this picture kind of showed where all those pictures were, or where all those pockets were, as well as showing the actual interior of the item. And just like any other blazer, showing the material context is important. However, and the size was really good on this one too. But that was in the pocket, was also actually new without tags. I knew that because this cross stitching on the vent, that's designed to be removed when you wear it for the first time. Obviously, you want to include the measurements, or you will never sell a blazer without these 4 key measurements. You want a chest, an overall length, a shoulder width, and the arm length. So yeah, keep your eye out in the blazer section. There's a lot of money to be made if you know what you're looking for. Now we're moving out of the home runs. These next few items are all items that sold exceptionally fast. First up is this Asahi K1000 vintage film camera. I sold this 4 parts untested simply because I didn't want to take the time to test it. It could have sold for $250, $300 had I been okay with that. However, I'm okay with selling it to another seller who's willing to put in that work. It's really just as simple as putting in a button style battery and adding some film, but it's just not something I was interested in. So yeah, keep your eye out on all sections. You got to know what sells in all sections of the thrift store or garage sale. Up next, these boots sold in 2 days. These are Area Anthem waterproof women's boots. They sold in, like I said, 2 days because they were priced correctly, had a pretty decent thumbnail picture, and they were in pretty good shape. I don't even take the time to clean the soles anymore. These were a size 7.5, and these were in really good shape. Sold for $76 in about 2 days. Up next is this Patagonia Nano Puff jacket. This sold in 6 days for $100. I did take an offer. I had it listed at $120, but the Patagonia Nano Puff line sells so quick. It is their Primaloft line, meaning it's polyester insulation. The down ones will sell for even more and even faster, but if you price these right, they sell really quick. This is just a size medium. The Nano Puff is this quilted puffer jacket, so obviously Patagonia is a great brand. We all know it. So keep your eye out for Patagonia. Up next, this sold in, I think, 6 days as well. I had it in my last thrift haul video, actually. And it sold so fast because I'm in the business of selling, not storing. So when an offer for $88.88 came in, I said, yeah, that's a good enough profit for me, and got it out the door. Unbound Merino was a new brand to me. Obviously, it's a good size, super basic, but this is just a really high-end brand. It is 97% merino with 3% elastane to give it some stretch. Added some good measurements. The main keywords I added were travel, tech, and hiking. So yeah, this sold, like I said, in like 6 days. Keep your eye out for Unbound Merino. Up next is this Outdoor Research Helium 2 rain jacket. It sold in 2 days for $65.87. Outdoor Research can be a really good brand if you can get it for a good price. I paid $10.49 for this jacket. Like I said, it sold in 2 days for $65.87. It's a really good colorway in the purple. It's also Outdoor Research's ultralight backpacking line. The good thing about Outdoor Research is they give you the style name right on the tag as well as the style number, and that definitely helps get the sale. This did have that Vertex shield. It was in that line. These retail for $150, probably $200. But yeah, Outdoor Research can be an excellent brand, especially in their outerwear, so keep an eye out for Outdoor Research. Up next is this Anson belt and buckle gift set. It was brand new in the box. It included 3 straps and 2 buckles. The whole premise behind this is you cut the belt to length, and then you don't have to put any holes in the belt itself because it's like a ratcheting buckle system. I don't know if you can really see that, but this isn't a brand I knew when I found it. It just looked like something that would be worth money. So I did a comp. I think I paid $10 for this at the thrift store, and it sold within a couple of days for $72. Up next is a pair of mizzen and main helmsman pants. I paid $9 for these. They were brand new with tags at the thrift store, and they sold in the same day I listed them for $80. Mizzen and Main, I've never found their pants before, but I pick up their button shirts even because they sell for pretty decent bread and butter prices that hit my $10 profit minimum. Again, these include that style name there and on the tag. If this is worn off on a used pair, you can look it up with the style number on the tag. Mizzen and Main is an excellent brand. They have fallen off a bit. Their button shirts used to sell for $35.40, and now you're probably looking at $22 to $28 plus shipping. So be careful. Don't pay up for their used shirts. But if you find a pair of brand new pants, pick them up and get them sold. Okay, up next, we're going to talk about some keywords. The next few items have some keywords that increase their value quite a bit. So this is a Patagonia R1 jacket. R1 is their regulator line, and it's a higher end of Patagonia. Patagonia is already relatively high end, but if you see this little R in the square, it's going to be an upgraded line, so keep an eye out for that. Also on Patagonia, you can always look up this style number. It's always a 5-digit number followed by when it was produced. So this was spring of 2009, and it's 40125. You can type that into Google and it'll bring up most likely Patagonia workwear. You can see what Patagonia is pricing for their used stuff that way. But yeah, so this is this kind of waffle fleece pattern, and it sold for $70 in like 3 days, 4 days. A couple more important keywords, obviously, we have gorpcore, regulator, and Polartec. Polartec makes higher end fleeces, and there's more lines within Polartec. I might need to do a deep dive into that at some point. Up next, this Hollister jacket. This is just a Y2K Hollister jacket. I wouldn't pick up just any Hollister jacket, but this one really fit the Y2K Bella Swan grunge aesthetic. And because of that, I thought it was worth paying $12 for. It sold for $52 in a couple of weeks. Up next, this was a really cool piece. This is a vintage 80s Eddie Bauer wool sweater. It does have kind of this shawl collar. The way to know that this is vintage made in the 80s is this black tag. And I do include that in the title because there are people who look specifically for the Eddie Bauer black tag, because Eddie Bauer used to be Patagonia in 1980. Like, they were the premier outdoor brand. This was a really good size and large, tall. But again, that Eddie Bauer black label with the script font is always really a good sign that you might want to pick that up. Like I said, it was made in USA. Again, $100 for an item that sold in less than a month. You just can't beat that with a stick. If you're enjoying what you're seeing so far, I would really appreciate it if you'd go ahead and subscribe to the channel. I'm going to do one of these every single month. Also, plan on doing some brand deep dive videos and some stuff like that. So if you want to learn and sell more on eBay, Poshmark, Depop, Mercari, hit subscribe. If you're learning something, hit like down below. It would be appreciated. Thanks. Up next is this vintage 40s World War II Navy sailor pants. These sold for $53 in less than a week. I priced them considerably lower than I planned when I picked them up for a couple of reasons. Let's talk about what to look for first. This is called the 13-button broadfall fly. I sold these in the women's category because I thought they fit the women's aesthetics better. However, these are men's pants. The reason I didn't price them up, they did have a moth hole, and they were missing the two fly buttons that put them together up here. But these are genuine 1940s Naval Clothing Factory sailor pants. Brands like Rag & Bone, Reformation, and stuff like that are making similar pants to these and charging $250. Had these been in pristine condition, I likely would have listed them for closer to $150, $200. Up next is this Polo Ralph Lauren denim shirt. This sold for $102 in a matter of a couple of days. And most Polo Ralph Lauren denim shirts are going to sell for 20 to 30. So what made this sell so well? And it's 100% its keywords. So, and obviously the aesthetic. So this fits really well into both the Western and coquette aesthetics with that bow and the denim. It's not necessarily vintage. My guess is 2008, 2012 in there somewhere. It did have the color pony, which I added in the keywords here. That was on the tie part, like right in here. But yeah, so the keywords is what made this sell so fast. If I didn't have Western coquette in this title, there's a good chance this sits unless I price it way lower. Next up is this North Face Alps. The keywords used here were gorpcore and heat seeker. This had a bit of a dark spot on the chest and it still sold for $60 because it's this 550 down fill. If you know the fill, you're going to want to include that. It makes it way more searchable. Obviously, we all know North Face. You don't pick up everything. They're down-filled items. I do pay up to $10, $15 for. Up next is Cool Radical pants. These just really fit the gorpcore aesthetic really well. Cool is kind of the trend in hiking gear right now. These have articulated knees. Not quite as articulated as the Rider, but they're still really good. Like I said, they sold for $51. I rarely pass on Cool if it's priced appropriately. My thrift store is now pricing these at $25, $30. So I think they watch what I buy and they start pricing stuff up. But yeah, Cool Radical pants. If you see kind of thick canvas pants, even if they're not cool, and you see articulated knees where they have these extra stitches, typically that's going to be a sign that it's something higher end. So you're going to want to comp it. If it's a brand you've never heard of, but they have articulated knees, be sure to check them out. All right, up next, we're going to go over a few Ralph Lauren items and why they sold and what to leave behind. So this is a Ralph Lauren corduroy blazer in a size 44. I don't pick up all Ralph Lauren blazers. In fact, especially Lauren Ralph Lauren, I pass on 99% of them. I picked this one up for a few reasons. Number one, it is corduroy, which is on trend right now. And then this paisley lining was super cool. I knew that would also help it sell. It was in a very common size at 44. It's also cotton. Like, there's a lot of things going against this blazer, but the aesthetic of it was enough to pull that sell through. So I did pay $10 for this, and it sold for $58 in just a couple months. Up next is this Ralph Lauren cable knit cardigan. Again, it's a longer length cardigan, which is a good aesthetic. It's a good size in being 2X. And it's also a silk and cashmere blend, 85% silk, 15% cashmere. If this was cotton, you're looking at $30, $35. Being silk and cashmere, it boosted that price up to that $52. And some really good keywords here were luxury and fisherman. Ralph Lauren pants. Again, not something we pick up all the time. These sold in about a month, though. So what made these sell? A few things. Number one, they were 100% wool. Number two, they were a good size. And these really fit the dark academia aesthetic, and they were wide leg. So all of those factors together stacked up, we got a sale for $40 in just under a month. Up next is this Ralph Lauren quarter zip. Honestly, this is kind of a bread and butter Ralph Lauren item. I pick up a lot of these, especially only if they're extra large or bigger. What helped this sale come through is the keywords. If you don't keyword Ralph Lauren, you will not sell it. Preppy, heritage, classic, and moving down my description here, you can see I think descriptions are far more important than a lot of people say. Subtle preppy appeal, preppy, and then I list out 15 keywords in every description I make because these are searchable, especially on the other platforms. So Depop your description is what makes it show up in search. People say that it doesn't matter on eBay. However, yeah, they know that a lot of people aren't reading it, so they've kind of hidden it when you're looking for it. However, if it's not helping with search engine optimization SEO, I highly disbelieve that. I guarantee the algorithm is looking at your description to get more context about what the item is that you're trying to sell and serve it up to the right buyer. eBay wants to make money. eBay makes money by serving the right item to the right buyer. And the best way to get the right item is to have the most information possible. So I give the algorithm all the information it needs in the description. And then another pair of wide leg trousers sold pretty quick for Ralph Lauren. Again, these are the wide leg and they were wool. So, and these were a twill and also plus size again. So factor stacking works with Ralph Lauren. These are also Lauren Ralph Lauren, and you'll notice I don't say Lauren Ralph Lauren. I didn't even add LRL. Normally I'll add LRL. If you say Lauren Ralph Lauren, you're wasting all these characters from Lauren by adding it twice that you could, where I got the extra keyword career in. So yeah, don't waste space in your title. All right, up next, we're going to go over a few mistakes that I made. These are all items that took forever to sell. So first up are these Anthropologie pants. Just because Anthropologie sold it doesn't mean it's going to sell. These took 585 days to sell. These were the Jackson tapered. They were utility pants. Honestly, why did these not sell? There's a lot of reasons. My color temperature is off in this, I can tell. The style it's just no longer in style. I did try to fix that by throwing in the keyword barrel. These were even linen and they still sold for $9 and took 2 years to sell. So do your research. I was trying to do some fancy pictures back then. I've given up on this nonsense. But yeah, just because it's Anthropologie doesn't necessarily mean it's going to sell. Do a little bit of research before you buy. I lost $2 on this sale. Up next is this XCVI waffle knit. This took 545 days to sell for $14.49. I did only pay $1 for it, so I still profited like $4. However, it took almost 2 years to sell. Even with some decent keywords, boho and log and look, the pictures weren't great. And XCVI isn't a brand known for their waffle knit pattern. Up next is this Peter Millar sweater vest that took 590 days to sell. It had this logo that when I bought it, I thought was a Peter Millar logo, and it's just some random logo. The pictures are blurry. It's an older style. So yeah, it didn't sell. There are definitely sweater vests from Peter Millar I would pick up, anything cashmere, wool, anything like that. But this is just a cotton, and it didn't sell because it just didn't have any factors going for it. It's a terrible size and a size medium. The pictures aren't great. So yeah. Up next is this Carol Little. It took 430 days to sell for $17.68. I did only pay $2.50 for it. However, that's a profit of about $3. So let's talk about why this didn't sell. This was pretty early on in our reselling when we picked it up. Liquid knit can be a really good keyword for brands like Carol Little. This was new with tags, and it still took that long to sell for that little bit of money. Even though new, it was $80 probably 20 years ago. This picture just isn't great. It's wrinkly. I tried to do this background just because I was trying to be original. And we just didn't really get any great keywords in here other than the liquid knit. Flowy was kind of a big deal, but it really isn't all that flowy. We called it a sweater, even though it's closer to being should be called a blazer maybe with the lapels. And yeah, so it didn't sell. The reality of a $10,000 month is a mix of everything. $300 designer jeans, $40 fast flips. You're going to make some mistakes along the way. But don't let that stop you. Hit subscribe below. I've got some new videos coming out that deep dive into brands that you can pick up that will sell quick or for a good profit. I'm going to teach you how to take good pictures. I'm going to teach you how to do good market research. So yeah, hit subscribe and I'll see you next time.